Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Ashish and today we'll be learning about Chester Bernard, which is a part of our module 2, that is administrative thought. In last session we have learned about behavioral approach. If you have not watched that session, please do that. The link for the same would be in the description of this video. Also an update regarding notes. I am planning to launch an app from which you will be able to then access these notes. I'll make an announcement about it within this week itself. So hold on to that. And continuing today with our Chester I. Bernard session, we'll see about Chester I. Bernard. So Chester I. Bernard was best known as early behavioralist and a brilliant organizational theoretician. He was an outstanding business executive and public servant. As we have already seen in our behavioral approach session, that Chester Bernard is considered as a forerunner of behavioral approach, right? Behavioral approach as such started post World War II, but Chester Bernard was the person who is considered as the forerunner of this behavioral approach. So he is the best known early behavioralist and he is a brilliant organizational theoretician. He was an outstanding business executive and as well as public servant. He was born in USA in 1886. From 1927 until his death in 1981, Bernard was deeply involved in analyzing the nature of management. So this is what he did. He analyzed the nature of management. Bernard was inspired by the work of Oliver Sheldon, Alton Mayo, M.P. Foley, Lawrence Lowell and others. So all of these people influenced Chester Bernard to carry on his work. All of his work is influenced by these people. Alton Mayo, we have learned about Alton Mayo in Hawthorne Studies, right? We have learned about Mary Parker Foley also. So Bernard was inspired by all of these people. He published two books. The first book was in 1938, The Functions of the Executive. This is the most important of his books. And the second book was 1948 book on organization and management. Of the two books, The Functions of the Executive is Bernard's monumental work. So this is the most important work that he has done in his entire life, The Functions of the Executive in 1938. It was a product of ripe experience and abiding interest in economics, psychology, political science, philosophy and allied fields of knowledge. So he had ventured into so many fields in this book. So it was a culmination of everything that he has done regarding all of these fields. It exerted tremendous influence in its time. In that time it was a very influential book, and even today it is very influential book. And Peters and Waterman, in their book In Search of Excellence, they have said that Bernard's work was probably the first balanced treatment of management process. This is what Peters and Waterman have said about Chester Bernard. They have said that Bernard's work was probably the first balanced treatment of the management process. So now you understand how important Chester Bernard is. Also remember that he is the forerunner of behavioral approach. We have learned about behavioral approach in our last session. Chester Bernard is the forerunner of behavioral approach. So moving on, we'll now see what concepts he gave. So first concept that Chester Bernard gave us was organization as a cooperative system. We'll see what this means. Now this is a very important concept that Chester Bernard gave us, and as we'll see in our entire session of Chester Bernard, all of his further theories will rest upon this thing, that how organization is a cooperative system. So this is a very important concept. Pay attention to this. Basic premise is individuals must cooperate. This is very simple, very basic premise. What he says is individuals must cooperate. This is nothing but the basic idea of cooperative system. If you have this basic premise with you, this concept will become very easy. So individuals must cooperate. This is the basic premise. For him, organization is a cooperative system. He maintains that cooperation originates in the need of an individual to accomplish purposes which he individually cannot achieve. So he viewed organization as a cooperative system, and what he says is individuals what cannot achieve themselves individually, they achieve it in cooperation, they achieve it in group. जो आप खुद अकेले अचीव नहीं कर सकते वो आप cooperation से अचीव कर सकते हो. And this is also, if you remember, this is also something that Mary Parker Foley said. If you remember, she said that whatever the output of group is, it is always greater than the sum of what individuals have to give. So group output is always greater than the individual output. Almost on the same lines, this is also what Mary Parker Foley said. So also remember that he was influenced by Mary Parker Foley. We have learnt about this in our previous slide, right? Chester Bernard was influenced by Mary Parker Foley. So it is but obvious that her ideas would be implemented by him also, right? So he says that cooperation originates in the need of an individual to accomplish purposes which he individually cannot achieve. जो आप खुद अचीव नहीं कर सकते वो आप cooperation से अचीव करते हो. And how do you do this? We'll see now. He says that free choice does not exist. You can say how much ever you want that my life, my rules, and so I have free choice. I will choose whatever I want. We say this, right? My life, my rules, and my choice. But what Chester Bernard says is, in reality free choice does not exist. How much ever you say that I have free choice, in reality you do not have free choice. This is the real world scenario and you have to face it, you have to accept it. Free choice does not exist. This is what Chester Bernard says. An individual human being is constrained by limiting factors of the total situation. So you are always constrained by the limiting factors. There are certain limiting factors in every situation. You might think that you have made a free choice, you might think that you have free choice, but every situation has some limiting factors and you are constrained by those limiting factors. The most important limiting factors in Chester Bernard's view are biological, physical and social. So these are the limiting factors: biological limitations, physical limitations and social limitations. So what are biological limitations? He says that power of adjustment, choice and ability of experience. So power of adjustment, if you do not have the power to adjust, that is your biological limitation. Suppose a situation is changing, a time is changing, and with changing times, if you are not able to adjust to those changing times, this is your biological limitations. So you might think that you have free choice, but if you are not able to adjust, you do not have free choice. That is your biological limitation and you are constrained by this limitation. So power of adjustment is a limitation, power of choice is a limitation, ability of experience is a limitation, because we learn from experience, right? So if you do not have the ability to learn from experience, if you do not have the ability to learn from changing times, that is a limitation on you, that is a biological limitation. So to sum it all up, free choice does not exist, and that is why individuals cannot achieve something. As you can see, cooperation originates in the need of an individual to accomplish purposes which he individually cannot achieve. And why he cannot achieve these purposes? Because free choice does not exist and people are always constrained by some of the limiting factors, either biological limitations or physical limitations or social limitations. Either your parents or society will restrict you from doing something. These are social limitations. So there are various limitations in every situation and you are constrained by these limitations. Try to understand this, and that is why free choice does not exist. The most effective method of overcoming these limitations in the view of Bernard is cooperative social action. तो आप cooperation करो और आप इन limitations को overcome कर सकते हो. The effective method, the most effective method of overcoming these limitations is cooperation. If you do cooperation, then you can overcome these limitations, and that is how you can accomplish what you cannot accomplish individually. अगर आप cooperation करोगे तो आप वो accomplish कर लोगे जो आप individual accomplish नहीं कर पाए, because you are constrained by some limiting factors, right? So most effective method is cooperation. This requires that he adopt a group or non-personal purpose and take into consideration the process of interaction. तो अगर आपको cooperation करना है तो obviously आपको अपना purpose छोड़ के group का purpose अपनाना पड़ेगा. You will have to adopt a group purpose. Whatever you are working in, that group purpose you will have to adopt. You will have to keep aside your own purpose and you will have to adopt a group purpose or a non-personal purpose, and you have to consider the process of interaction. So this is how you cooperate. Adopt the group purpose and interact and integrate, and this is how you cooperate. As many individuals are engaged in cooperative behavior, the complex biological, psychological and social factors are in constant interaction. तो जो भी आपके limitations थे ना, biological, physical, sociological, psychological, जो भी limitations थे आपके, वो सारे limitations अब एक constant interaction में हैं because you are cooperating. So what this gives rise to is a system in which the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts, and each part is related to every other part in some significant way. Also we have seen this in Mary Parker Foley also, right? So try to connect all these things, and because Chester Bernard was influenced by Mary Parker Foley, he also said the same thing, that when you are cooperating, the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. So whatever, let's say there are 5 people in a group, so those 5 people individually what they have to contribute will always be less than what the group as a whole contributes. So the output of the group will always be greater than sum of its parts, and each part is related to every other part. We have seen this in Mary Parker Foley also. She says that one person influences every other person in the group, and on the other hand every other person in the group also influence that person. So everyone influences everyone in a group, right? So what you get out of a group is always greater than the sum of its parts. So always try to relate these things. So this is how he says that cooperation can accomplish something that individually you cannot accomplish. I hope you understand this now, because individually you do not have free choice. Free choice does not exist, and this is why it is important for you to cooperate. Also, this is one way to look at it, that free choice does not exist. Also, the other way to look at it is that the nature puts such a constraint on an individual that he cannot overcome except through the cooperative action. For example, lifting a big heavy rock or lifting a stone. तो आपको नेचर ही ऐसा कुछ कर देगा कि आपको कॉपरेशन के अलावा कोई और चारा है ही नहीं. In the above scenario, we have seen there were certain limitations, some biological limitations, your power of adjustment, your power of learning from experience. So these are your own personal limitations, right? If you can overcome this, then you can overcome these limitations. But there might be certain scenarios where you cannot overcome this and cooperative action is the only way out. और कोई चारा बचता ही नहीं है आपके पास, फिर आपको कॉपरेशन करना ही पड़ेगा. या ऐसा भी कुछ सिनेरियो होते हैं. दिस इज समथिंग दैट नेचर गिव्स यू ऑन इट्स ओन. फॉर एग्जांपल, लिफ्टिंग अ बिग हैवी स्टोन, इसमें आप कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते. इसमें आपका पावर ऑफ एडजस्टमेंट, लर्निंग एबिलिटी, ये सब कुछ लिमिटेशन नहीं है. ये तो आपका नेचर ने ऐसा कर दिया है, कंस्ट्रेंट बना दिया है कि आपको अभी कॉपरेशन करना ही पड़ेगा. 5 लोगों को मिलके ही वो पत्थर उठाना पड़ेगा. सो दिस इज नथिंग बट कॉपरेशन अकॉर्डिंग टू चेस्टर बर्नार्ड. Rejecting the old definitions of organization as emphasizing membership, Bernard defines organization as a system of consciously coordinated activities of 2 or more persons. So what he did was he rejected all the old definitions of organization. So whatever classical thinkers have given the definitions of organization, he rejected every definition of organization, and he defines organization as a system of consciously coordinated activity of 2 or more persons. So whatever 2 or more people are consciously coordinating, that is nothing but an organization. This is the definition of organization as given by Chester Bernard. So I hope cooperative system is clear to you, what is cooperative system and why it is good for people to cooperate. Now moving on, we'll look at contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium given by Chester Bernard in relation to cooperative system of organization itself. This is in relation to that cooperative system only. So we'll look at this contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium. This can also be said as Bernard's view on motivation. Bernard specifically did not say that these are the theories of motivation that I give, but this can be said as Bernard's view on motivation. So if in UPSC you get a question asking about Bernard's view on motivation, remember this, remember contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium. We'll learn about this now. One central question that Bernard is riddled with is, under what conditions is cooperative behavior of man possible? We have seen in our previous slide that man should cooperate because free choice does not exist and everything, that group output is more than individual output. We have seen this, that why should man cooperate, right? But now the question arises, under what conditions is it possible? Under what conditions is cooperation possible? We'll look at this now. He strongly disapproves the concept of economic man. Man is not motivated by economic incentives alone. He says that okay, economic incentives are there, but to say that human being is an economic man, he is just motivated by money only, this is wrong. So he strongly disapproves the concept of economic man. People contribute, that is take part in organizational activities, only when it is advantageous to them in terms of personal satisfaction. So when people are satisfied personally, only then they will contribute to your organization, only then they will take part in the organizational activities. This is how they are motivated, and not by only money but also by personal satisfaction. अगर उनको काम करने में satisfaction मिलेगा तभी वो काम करेंगे, नहीं तो वो काम नहीं करेंगे. So personal satisfaction is also a big thing for contribution of people. If each man gets back only what he puts in, that is, there is no incentive, there will be also no net satisfaction for him in cooperation. तो अगर उसको उतना ही वापस मिल रहा है जितना वो दे रहा है, तो कोई इंसेंटिव नहीं है ना उसे काम करने का. मतलब क्या हो गया, अगर उसे कुछ प्रॉफिट नहीं हो रहा है उसमें, तो सो ही always needs some incentive to work. If he only gets back what he puts in, there is no incentive, right? And that is how there will be no net satisfaction for him in cooperation. तो ऐसे वो cooperate क्यों करेगा? उसको कुछ फायदा नहीं हो रहा है ना उसमें. I hope you understand this. There is no net satisfaction for him because there is no incentive for him to cooperate. So why will he cooperate? So for cooperation there should be incentive for that person to cooperate, right? So what he says is, what he gets back must give him advantage in terms of satisfaction. So when a person is cooperating, he must get satisfaction from that cooperation, right? So what he gets back must give him advantage in terms of satisfaction. From the viewpoint of organization, this satisfaction is nothing but inducements or incentive. अगर आप एक organization के viewpoint से देखोगे तो ये satisfaction जो होता है, किसी को cooperate कराने का satisfaction है, this is nothing but the inducements or incentive that you give to a person to cooperate. आप ग्रुप में काम करो, आपको 500 रुपये एक्स्ट्रा देंगे. दिस इज जस्ट एन एग्जांपल आई एम गिविंग यू, राइट? सो आप ग्रुप में काम करो, आपको 500 रुपये एक्स्ट्रा देंगे. दिस इज एन इंसेंटिव यू आर गिविंग टू हिम, राइट? सो फ्रॉम अ व्यू पॉइंट ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, how you can satisfy a person for cooperation, you give him inducements or incentives for cooperation, and that is why he will cooperate. So as you can see, there was one central question: under what conditions is cooperative behavior of man possible? Under the conditions of satisfaction or inducements or incentives. I hope this is clear to you now. Under what conditions is cooperation possible? अगर वो satisfy होगा तो ही cooperate करेगा, अगर उसे कुछ incentive profit मिलेगा तो ही वो cooperate करेगा, अगर उसे कोई profit ही नहीं है cooperation करने में तो क्यों cooperate करेगा, right? An organization functions through an equilibrium of contributions and satisfactions of its participant members. So whatever the contribution the employee is giving and whatever the satisfaction is receiving in lieu of that contribution, so there should be an equilibrium of this. So I hope this is clear to you now. Contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium. जो भी contribution employee कर रहा है और उस contribution के बदले में उसको जो satisfaction मिल रहा है, इन दोनों की चीज में equilibrium होना चाहिए. This is nothing but contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium. Very simple, right? A person is contributing, and if he is satisfied for that contribution, there is an equilibrium. So there should be contribution, satisfaction, equilibrium, and organizations functions through this equilibrium of contributions and satisfaction of its participants member. So we have seen so much about inducements and incentives. We will now see what inducements or incentives Bernard suggested. As we have seen that he says that money is not the only incentive, right? Money is one of the incentives, it is not the only incentive. So now we will see what incentives Bernard actually suggested. We'll come back to this slide. There are a few more points remaining in this slide. In next slide we'll see what are the inducements or incentives that Bernard suggested. So he divided inducements into two types. One is specific type and one is general type. So general type is like very general, सबके लिए लागू होता है and everyone is applicable. And specific type are like very specific inducements, like money inducement हो गया आपका and prestige आपका inducement हो गया. These are very specific type of inducements, and another type is general incentives. So we'll look about general first. So there are four types of general and four types of specific. So four types of general are: first is compatibility with associates. So you should be compatible with your associates, only then will you cooperate with your associates, right? अगर आपको cooperation करना है associates के साथ तो आपको उनके साथ compatible भी होना पड़ेगा ना. So this is one type of incentive that you can give to a person. You can give him such a group that he is comfortable within such a group. So compatibility with associates is one kind of general incentive that you can give to your employee. Give him such a group that he is compatible with. Second type of general incentive is adaptation of working conditions to habitual methods and attitudes. तो हर इंसान के कुछ habits होते हैं, कुछ attitudes होते हैं, right? So when a person is working in a group, if he is able to adapt the working conditions of that group to his own habits and his own methods and attitudes, that is when he will cooperate better, right? So this is another kind of general incentive, that there should be adaptation of working conditions to that person's own habits and own attitudes. The third type of general incentive is feeling of enlarged participation. तो उसको ये feeling आनी चाहिए कि वो भी participate कर रहा है, his contribution also matters, उसकी importance उसको मालूम पड़नी चाहिए. So feeling of enlarged participation should be there. This is the third kind of general incentive. The fourth kind of general incentive is condition of communing with others, that is personal comfort, mutual support, etc. तो उसका पर्सनल कंफर्ट उस ग्रुप में कितना अच्छा है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, देर इज अ गाय हु इज़ वेरी इंट्रोवर्ट, हु इज़ नॉट वेरी एक्सट्रोवर्ट एंड वेरी सोशल, हु इज़ वेरी इंट्रोवर्ट, तो उसका उतना पर्सनल कंफर्ट नहीं होगा कोऑपरेशन में. सो यू हैव टू एंश्योर दैट दैट पर्सन इज पर्सनली कंफर्टेबल इन दैट ग्रुप. सो दिस इज द फोर्थ काइंड ऑफ जनरल इंसेंटिव दैट यू कैन गिव. कंडीशन ऑफ कम्यूनिंग विद अदर्स, देयर शुड बी पर्सनल कंफर्ट एंड म्यूचुअल सपोर्ट एक्सेट्रा. सो दीज आर द जनरल incentives. Now we will see what are the specific incentives or specific inducements that Chester Bernard says. First type of specific inducement is material inducement, and this is nothing but money or things. आप अच्छा काम करोगे तो आपको पैसा मिलेगा. If you do 5 hours of extra work, you will be paid 1,000 rupees. So this is a very specific kind of inducement that you are giving, right? So this is a material kind of inducement, giving money or giving something in return of doing things. This is nothing but material inducement. This is the first kind of specific inducement. The second type of specific inducement is personal or non-material. हमने पहला देखा material था, दूसरा है non-personal or something which is very personal. This is the second type of specific inducement. This includes prestige, power, opportunities. You give a person promotion, you give a person power, you make him a manager or something, right? So you are giving him prestige, you are giving him power. This is a second type of specific inducement that you can give. The third kind of specific inducement is desirable conditions of work. आपके conditions of work अच्छे होने चाहिए. अगर आपके कंपनी में AC नहीं है, अगर आपके फैक्ट्री में AC नहीं है और गर्मी में सिर्फ पंखे से लोग परेशान हो रहे हैं, so this is not a desirable condition of work in a factory, in a company, right? So there should be desirable conditions of work. This is a third kind of specific inducement. Fourth kind of specific inducement is ideal beneficence. There should be ideal beneficence, which is nothing but pride of workmanship, sense of adequacy, altruistic service, loyalty to organization, patriotism, religious feelings. And these are nothing but, if you are giving him these ideal beneficence, if you are giving him a sense of pride of working, अगर उसको गर्व होगा अपने काम करने पे, एज एन IAS और IPS ऑफिसर, you will be pride of working, right? You will have that pride that I am working as an IAS officer for the government of India. So that is an ideal benefaction that the government is giving you. This is the specific inducement that the government is giving you. ये जनरल इंड्यूसमेंट नहीं है, हर किसी को नहीं देती है गवर्नमेंट. ये IAS वाला जो प्राइड वाला जो है वो हर गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉय को नहीं मिलेगा, राइट? वो सिर्फ IAS ऑफिसर्स को ही मिलेगा. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ प्राइड इज अ स्पेसिफिक इंड्यूसमेंट. दिस काइंड ऑफ सेंस ऑफ एडिक्वेसी, अल्ट्रुइस्टिक सर्विस, जो आप सेल्फलेस सर्विस दे रहे हो सोसाइटी को, देयर इज अ सेंस ऑफ अल्ट्रुइस्टिक सर्विस, राइट? कि आप सेवा कर रहे हो लोगों की. दिस इज अ आइडियल बेनिफिकेशन दैट द गवर्नमेंट इज गिविंग यू एज अ स्पेसिफिक इंड्यूसमेंट. रिमेंबर दिस. लॉयल्टी टू ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, patriotism, religious feelings, these are different kinds of, and many others. This is not the list, there are many others ideal benefaction that you can give to an employee. So there are two kinds of inducements, remember this: specific inducement and general inducements, and each of them are divided into 4 parts. So there are 4 of these each that Chester Bernard give us. So we'll go back to our previous slide. So as you can see, Bernard maintains that economic rewards are ineffective beyond the subsistence level. So what is the subsistence level? जिंदा रहने के लिए जो करना होता है, that is subsistence. आपको अपना पेट भरने के लिए जो आप कर रहे हो, that is subsistence. So economic rewards, पैसे वाले जो rewards होते हैं, those are ineffective beyond subsistence level. आप कितना पैसा दोगे एक आदमी को, कितना पैसा दोगे? एक पॉइंट के बाद उसको लगेगा ना कि यार मैं सेटिस्फाई नहीं हो रहा हूँ, this is not the work that I want to do, he will leave that work. So economic rewards are ineffective beyond the subsistence level. एक बार उसका पेट भर गया तो उसको फिर पैसे से फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, फिर उसको सेटिस्फेक्शन चाहिए. ही ऑल्सो सेज दैट इंड्यूसमेंट्स कैन नॉट बी अप्लाइड मैकेनिकली एंड द प्रोपोर्शन डिपेंड्स ऑन पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशंस, टाइम्स एंड इंडिविजुअल्स. तो हर इंसान के लिए अलग इंड्यूसमेंट्स होते हैं. नॉट एवरी वन विल बी अफेक्टेड बाई द इंड्यूसमेंट दैट आई एम अफेक्टेड विद, राइट? सो इंड्यूसमेंट्स कैन नॉट बी अप्लाइड मैकेनिकली. आप इसको मैकेनिकली हर किसी के लिए सेम इंड्यूसमेंट्स नहीं कर सकते. दे हैव टू वेरी अकॉर्डिंग टू पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशंस, अकॉर्डिंग टू पर्टिकुलर टाइम्स एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू डिफरेंट इंडिविजुअल्स, because inducements are not same for everyone. Remember this. The arrangement of inducements is a dynamic process requiring experiences and imagination. So however you are arranging your inducements, this is a dynamic process. कोई static process नहीं है कि आपने एक बार arrange कर दिया कि इस लेवल पे इतना पैसा मिलेगा, इस लेवल पे इतना आपको pride मिलेगा, and इस लेवल पे इतना आपको sense of adequacy मिलेगा. So this is not something that you arrange some static way. There is a very dynamic process of arranging inducements, and it requires experience. If you are not experienced in this, then you will not be able to arrange your inducements, and you will not be able to motivate your employees. So to motivate your employees, the arrangements of inducement should be a dynamic process, and it requires also imagination. Experience and imagination दोनों चाहिए. creativity चाहिए आपको inducements देने के लिए. If you are creative, you will be able to motivate your employees. Bernard feels that the primary functions of the executive is to handle the economy of incentives within an organization. तो प्राइमरी फंक्शन एक एग्जीक्यूटिव का होता है इंसेंटिव्स को हैंडल करना. अगर आप इंसेंटिव्स को हैंडल कर रहे हो, यू आर एबल टू मोटिवेट योर एम्प्लॉइज, राइट? बिकॉज व्हाई विल पर्सन कोऑपरेट, व्हाई विल अ पर्सन अंडरगो अ कोऑपरेटिव बिहेवियर? ओनली व्हेन ही इज सेटिस्फाइड. एंड व्हेन विल ही सेटिस्फाई हिमसेल्फ? ओनली व्हेन ही इज गेटिंग सम इंसेंटिव और इंड्यूसमेंट फॉर दोस कोऑपरेशन. सो आई होप दिस इज क्लियर टू यू. कंट्रीब्यूशन, satisfaction, equilibrium. For whatever the person is contributing, he must be satisfied. And how do you satisfy that person? By giving inducements or incentives. And remember, money is not the only thing that is considered as an inducement, and Chester Bernard has strongly disapproved the concept of economic man. Money is not the only thing that motivates. So moving on, we have seen this. Now we'll see distinction between efficiency and effectiveness. Now pay close attention to this. This is not given in many reference books, not even in Prasad and Prasad. Distinction between efficiency and effectiveness. And this is not so difficult concept. It is a very simple concept. But only trick here is if you mix up these definitions of efficiency and effectiveness, these are different from what previously we have learnt about efficiency and effectiveness in our classical approach. So pay close attention to it. It is very simple, but it can be tricky. So Bernard treats organizational efficiency as always different from organizational effectiveness. He differentiates between organizational efficiency and organizational effectiveness. So what is this? We'll see. The cooperative organization for its survival must be effective and efficient. Effective in the sense for achieving organization purpose, and efficient in the sense of satisfying individual motives. So try to remember, in whatever previous sessions of classical theory we have learned about efficiency, we have learned that efficiency of organization that they were focused on. Every thinker, every scholar and every author wrote about efficiency of an organization, right? What Chester Bernard says is efficiency means satisfying individual motives. We have seen what satisfaction means in our previous slide, right? So if you are able to satisfy your employees, that is how you are efficient. This is what Chester Bernard means by efficiency. If you are able to satisfy your employees, that is how you are efficient. And how you are effective? Effectiveness arise from achieving organization purpose. If you are able to achieve your organization purpose, then you are effective. And as opposed to this, we have learnt in our classical thinkers, all of the classical thinkers said that how a organization can achieve efficiency, if it is able to achieve organization purpose, right? So this is how they have defined efficiency. But Chester Bernard says that organization purpose is nothing but related to effectiveness. How effectiveness is defined is nothing but organization purpose, and how efficiency is defined is nothing but satisfaction of your employees. So remember this, it is very simple concept, but it can be very tricky, and it will be used all over our this session of Chester Bernard. This concept of efficiency and effectiveness, it will be used throughout. So please understand this, efficiency means satisfaction. Thus both the individuals and organization become important, as opposed to what classical thinkers believed. Chester Bernard says that both individuals and organization are important, because individual के relation में efficiency आती है और organization के relation में effectiveness आते हैं, right? So both the individual and organization become important. The executive should adopt the organization to the needs of individual and the general environment. So this is the work of the executive. He should adopt the organization to the needs of the individual. जो भी उनके needs होती हैं individuals की, उसको adopt करना चाहिए organization को उनके needs के लिए, because when their needs are satisfied only then it will achieve efficiency. अगर आप needs satisfy कर रहे हो, satisfaction अगर हो रहा है उनके needs का, तभी तो efficiency मिलेगी, right? So it should adopt the organization to the needs of individual and also to the general environment as a whole. It is these concerns of effectiveness and efficiency that form the running thread of his theory of cooperative behavior. So his entire theory of cooperative behavior is dependent on these themes of effectiveness and efficiency, and we'll see this all throughout our session of Chester Bernard also. And remember, this is not given in Prasad and Prasad. As far as I know, it is not given in any of the reference books also. So please try to understand this. This is a very important concept of efficiency and effectiveness. The concepts of efficiency and effectiveness are rooted in the motivational process. As we have already seen, efficiency is nothing but satisfying individual motives, right? So these concepts are rooted in motivational processes. So moving on, we will now see Bernard's understanding of human beings. We have said that Bernard is a forerunner of behavioral approach, right? So to be a behavioral thinker, he must have analyzed what human beings behave like. So we will see what Bernard understood of human beings' behaviors. Bernard seeks to understand human beings at two levels, from inside and from outside the organization. And remember this is a very important slide. You can quote this slide in one of the UPSC questions also. UPSC 2015, there was one very tricky question. It was very simple, but it was very tricky. We'll see at the end of this session what was that question of UPSC 2015. You can use this slide, if not everything, some points from this slide you can use in that answer. So Bernard seeks to understand human beings at two levels, from inside and from outside the organization. What is the outside of organization? The society. So everything is connected to society. We have seen this, right? Organizations do not flourish on their own, they are always connected to the society. If there is some changes happening in society, it will affect the organization also. So this is what Chester Bernard does. He understands human beings from inside and outside the organization. From inside, they are treated as participants in specific cooperative system. We have seen this. Inside the organization there is a cooperative system, right? So from inside, if you are viewing a human being, that human being will be viewed as a participant in that cooperative system. So from inside, they are treated as participants in specific cooperative system. Here they are regarded in their purely functional aspect. उनका purely functional aspect यहाँ पे आता है. Social aspect और psychological aspect ये सब नहीं आता है. Functional aspect. They are functioning as a participant in cooperative system. So they are regarded purely in their functional aspects. Their efforts are depersonalized and they have to fit into formalized roles. तो आपको depersonalize होके formalized role में fit होना पड़ेगा. This is how you see a human being from inside the organization. But this is not the entire picture. There is also one view of outside the organization. From the second angle, a person outside any specific organization has his own distinct qualities. आप कंपनी में काम करके बाहर निकलते हो तो आपकी खुद की एक सोशल लाइफ है, राइट? आपका एक परिवार है, आपके बीवी हैं, बच्चे हैं, आपके फ्रेंड्स हैं. सो यू हैव योर ओन distinct qualities outside your organization. From this is the second angle. The first angle was inside the organization where it is purely functional aspect, and second angle is you are a person also, right? So you have your own distinct qualities as a person. Bernard says that from this angle the individual is opposed to the cooperative system. He says that these two views of a human being are always opposed to each other. These two aspects, according to Bernard, are not alternative in time but are simultaneously and always present in cooperative system. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि एक टाइम पे जब आदमी कंपनी में काम कर रहा है तो वो सिर्फ प्योरली फंक्शनल एस्पेक्ट और सिर्फ फॉर्मलाइज्ड रोल्स में ही काम कर रहा है, और कंपनी से बाहर निकल गया तो सिर्फ वो सोशलाइज्ड रोल्स में ही काम कर रहा है. सो ऐसा नहीं है. दीज आर ऑलवेज प्रेजेंट, साइमल्टेनियसली एंड ऑलवेज प्रेजेंट. इफ अ पर्सन इज वर्किंग इन अ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, ही विल बी वर्किंग एज अ फॉर्मल पर्सन ऑल्सो एंड ऑल्सो एज अ सोशल पर्सन. सो टू सम इट ऑल अप, देयर आर टू व्यूज ऑफ ह्यूमन बींग्स. वन इज द फॉर्मल व्यू जहाँ पे वो सोसाइटी से पूरा कट ऑफ है एंड यू कंसिडर ओनली फंक्शनल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ दिस ह्यूमन बीइंग. सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट व्यू, दिस इज द फॉर्मल व्यू. द सेकंड व्यू इज द सोशल व्यू एज अ पर्सन हु इज इन द सोसाइटी, एंड दिस व्यू इज ऑलवेज अपोज्ड टू द फॉर्मल व्यू. ट्राई टू रिमेंबर दिस. एंड बोथ ऑफ दिस व्यूज डू नॉट अकर इन ऑल्टरनेटिव टाइम्स. एक के बाद एक अकर नहीं होते हैं. दे अकर साइमल्टेनियसली एंड दे आर ऑलवेज अकरिंग एंड दे आर ऑलवेज प्रेजेंट. अ पर्सन वर्किंग इन अ फैक्ट्री विल हैव हिज फॉर्मल साइड ऑल्सो एंड हिज सोशल साइड ऑल्सो. A person who is out in a restaurant eating with his friends, he will have his social side also and formal side also. So both of these aspects occur simultaneously and are always present in cooperative system. This is what Bernard says. It is these opposing and conflicting aspects, these are both opposing and conflicting aspects that require a serious examination to understand the organization phenomenon as a system of cooperation. And this is why we need the study of behavior of human beings. This is what Bernard says. Because both of these systems are always conflicting and opposing each other, this is why we need a serious examination of human behavior, and this is why Bernard examines the human behavior. So how did Bernard examine the human behavior? We'll see that now. He says that individual makes a choice on the basis of purposes, desires, impulses of the movements, and the alternatives external to the individuals. So there are some things which are internal to him which he can control. So he can control his purpose, he can control his desire, and he can control his impulses. These are something that is internal to him. और कुछ चीज़ें होती हैं, those are external to him. He cannot control this. So there are some external alternatives also. तो आप कोई भी choice अगर करते हो तो आप हमेशा इन दो चीज़ों के ऊपर बेस्ड पे ही चॉइस करते हो. आपके कुछ इंटरनल बेसिस हैं जो आप कंट्रोल कर सकते हो, और आप कुछ एक्सटर्नल बेसिस हैं जिनको आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते. तो आपकी चॉइस जो है इट गेट्स अफेक्टेड बाय बोथ ऑफ दीज फैक्टर्स. सो टू कम बैक टू आवर वेरी वेरी प्रीवियस पॉइंट, इफ यू रिमेंबर, देयर इज नो फ्री चॉइस. फ्री चॉइस डज नॉट एग्जिस्ट बिकॉज देयर आर ऑलवेज सम एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स दैट विल अफेक्ट यू दैट आर नॉट इन योर कंट्रोल. सो एवरी चॉइस दैट एन इंडिविजुअल मेक्स इज बेस्ड ऑन दिस इंटरनल फैक्टर्स एंड एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स. The organized effort results from the modification of action of individual through control or of influence upon one of these categories. तो वन ऑफ दिस कैटेगरीज में अगर कुछ भी इन्फ्लुएंस होगा या कुछ भी चेंज होगा तो आपकी चॉइस भी चेंज होंगी. तो दिस इज व्हाट ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एफर्ट इज, दैट बर्नार्ड सेज. ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एफर्ट इज नथिंग बट मॉडिफिकेशन ऑफ एक्शन थ्रू कंट्रोल और इन्फ्लुएंस अपॉन वन ऑफ दिस फैक्टर्स. अगर सोसाइटी में कुछ चेंज हो रहा है तो आपके ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एफर्ट के आउटपुट में भी चेंज होगा. अगर इंडिविजुअल ग्रुप मेंबर के इम्पल्सेस और डिजायर्स चेंज हो रहे हैं तो आपके ग्रुप का आउटपुट भी चेंज होगा. एंड दिस इज हाउ ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एफर्ट डिपेंड्स ऑन बोथ ऑफ दिस फैक्टर्स. दी डिज़ायर्स, इम्पल्सेस, वांट्स, ये जो भी इंटरनल जो भी चीज़ें हैं, इम्पल्सेस, वांट्स, पर्पस, डिज़ायर, जो भी हैं, दीज आर पॉपुलरली कैरेक्टराइज्ड एज मोटिव्स. दीज आर द मोटिव ऑफ एवरी इंडिविजुअल. व्हाट आर योर वांट्स आर योर मोटिव. आपके मोटिव क्या है? जो आपको चाहिए वो आपका मोटिव है, राइट? जो आपके इम्पल्स हैं वो आपके मोटिव हैं, जो आपका डिज़ायर है वो आपका मोटिव है. सो ऑल ऑफ दिस थिंग्स आर पॉपुलरली कैरेक्टराइज्ड एज मोटिव्स. दे फॉर्म एन इंपॉर्टेंट डायमेंशन ऑफ ह्यूमन बिहेवियर. इफ यू हैव टू एनालाइज ह्यूमन बिहेवियर, you have to analyze the motives of every person. I hope you understand why Chester Bernard is now considered as forerunner of behavioral approach, right? And please pay attention to this slide because these slides are not given in any of the reference books that I am telling you this. This is how Chester Bernard is regarded as forerunner of human behavior and behavioral approach because he has analyzed human behavior in such manner. So I hope this is clear to you how human beings behave. There are two views to view a human being. One is from inside the organization, one is outside the organization, and every choice that individual makes is based on two factors, internal factors and external factors. And internal factors are nothing but motives, which are an important dimension of human behavior. So moving on, we'll look at what Chester Bernard said about formal and informal organizations. So there are two slides of this. First slide of formal organization. As we saw, Bernard defines formal organization as a system of consciously coordinated activities. We saw this, right? What is formal organization? Consciously coordinated activities of two or more people. This is the definition of organization that Chester Bernard has given us. Our very first slide of Chester Bernard, if you remember, the definition of organization was consciously coordinated activities of two or more people. So we have seen this. This is how Bernard has defined the formal organization. According to Bernard, an organization is held together by three things. First thing is its capacity to generate a common purpose. If an organization has a common purpose, only then it will be held together. You cannot imagine an organization without a common purpose, right? If it is a shoe making factory, its common purpose is to make shoe. If it is some IT industry, its common purpose is to provide some services. So there should be some common purpose to an organization, and this is how an organization is held together. This is the first way. Second way is by willingness on the part of its members to contribute to its processes and purposes. तो अगर उनकी इच्छा होगी और अगर वो कंट्रीब्यूट करेंगे आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के काम में, तो ही आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन काम करेगी. अदरवाइज हाउ विल योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होल्ड टुगेदर, राइट? इफ योर एम्प्लॉइज आर नॉट willing to work. So if there is a willingness on the part of your employees to work, this is how your organization is held together in long run. By the ability of the members to communicate effectively. तो अगर आप अच्छी तरह से कम्युनिकेट कर पा रहे हो तो आप अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को एक रख पाओगे. If you are not a good communicator, that organization will crumble. So these are the three things. Remember this because Chester Bernard says that the three elements in formal organization are communications. You should be good enough to communicate. There should be a willingness to serve on the part of the employees, on the part of the members, and the third thing is the common purpose of the organization. So these are the three elements of formal organization. So we have seen the definition of formal organization that Bernard gave us: consciously coordinated activities, and three elements that Bernard gives us: common purpose, willingness to serve, and communication. So we'll see what Bernard said about willingness to serve. He says that willingness can be expressed in terms of loyalty, solidarity, and strength of organization. If you are loyal to organization, then only you will be willing to serve. And it's also correct because अगर आप loyal नहीं हो तो आप क्यों willing रहोगे? आपको इच्छा क्यों होगी वहाँ पे काम करने की, right? So if you are a loyal to organization, that is how you are willing to serve in that organization. If there is solidarity among the people in organization, जो आप ग्रुप में काम कर रहे हो उस ग्रुप में अगर यूनिटी है, सॉलिडरिटी है, तो ही आपकी इच्छा होगी उस ग्रुप में काम करने की. So there should be solidarity among people and there should be strength in an organization. The organization as a whole should be strong. Weak organization नहीं होनी चाहिए. So all of these things define your willingness to work in an organization. He further says that this willingness requires the belief that purpose can be carried out, and this is nothing but effectiveness. We have seen in our previous slides the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. I'll say it again and again over this whole session. What is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency? Efficiency is when you are able to satisfy. That is how you are efficient. And effectiveness is if you are able to achieve the common purpose of an organization. So willingness requires the belief that the purpose can be carried out. तो अगर आप ये बिलीव कर रहे हो कि आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इफेक्टिव है, आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आपका पर्पस कैरी आउट कर सकती है, दिस इज हाउ यू विल बी विलिंग. विलिंगनेस तभी आती है इफ देयर इज इफेक्टिवनेस. हाउएवर विलिंगनेस टू कंट्रीब्यूट डिसअपियर्स व्हेन इफेक्टिवनेस इजेस. तो अगर इफेक्टिवनेस चली जाएगी तो आपका विलिंगनेस भी चला जाएगा वहाँ पे काम करने का. लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल ऑफ बीइंग एन IAS ऑफिसर अगेन. सो व्हाट विल बी इफेक्टिवनेस in terms of IAS officer or civil services as a whole? IAS ऑफिसर, IPS ऑफिसर, IAS, IFS जो भी है सिविल सर्विसेज एज अ होल, यहाँ पे इफेक्टिवनेस क्या होगी? एबिलिटी टू अचीव द कॉमन पर्पस ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, राइट? व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ सिविल सर्विसेज? टू सर्व पीपल. तो अगर आप वो सर्विस कर पा रहे हो लोगों की, इफ देयर इज इफेक्टिवनेस, इफ यू आर एबल टू सर्व पीपल इफेक्टिवली, ओनली देन यू विल बी विलिंग टू सर्व एज एन IAS ऑफिसर, राइट? अगर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज नॉट एबल टू सर्व पीपल, इफ पीपल आर नॉट हैप्पी विद योर सिविल सर्विसेज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एज अ होल, व्हाई विल यू बी विलिंग टू सर्व एज एन IAS ऑफिसर? You have that excitement to become an IAS officer because you know about the purpose of that organization, right? आपको पता है कि इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, सिविल सर्विसेज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का पर्पस क्या है, एंड यू बिलीव दैट इट इज इफेक्टिव इनफ दैट यू विल बी एबल टू सर्व पीपल. तो आपको बिलीफ है कि इफेक्टिवनेस में, एंड दैट इज हाउ यू आर विलिंग टू बी एन IAS ऑफिसर, राइट? एंड दिस विल डिसअपियर व्हेन इफेक्टिवनेस इज. अगर आपको जिस दिन मालूम पड़ेगा सिविल सर्विसेज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज नॉट सो इफेक्टिव इन कैरिंग आउट इट्स पर्पस ऑफ सर्विसिंग पीपल, तो आपको उस दिन विलिंगनेस नहीं रहेगी काम करने की. सो दिस इज हाउ विलिंगनेस डिपेंड्स ऑन effectiveness. Continuous of willingness also depends upon satisfactions that are secured by individual. तो अगर आप satisfy हो रहे हो तो ही आप willing होगे, right? This is also we have seen in a previous slide. Again we will say this also. Contribution satisfaction equilibrium जो होता है वो willingness में भी काम करता है. अगर आप जितना contribute कर रहे हो, अगर आपको उसके मुकाबले satisfaction मिल रहा है तो ही आप विलिंग रहोगे काम करने के. सो कंटिन्यूस ऑफ विलिंगनेस ऑल्सो डिपेंड्स अपॉन सेटिस्फैक्शन दैट आर सिक्योर्ड बाय इंडिविजुअल्स. इफ सेटिस्फैक्शंस डू नॉट exceed the sacrifices required, willingness disappears and the condition is one of organization inefficiency. So whatever sacrifices that you are doing, whatever contributions that you are making, अगर आपको उसके मुकाबले satisfaction नहीं मिल रहा है तो आपकी willingness disappear हो जाएगी. And this is nothing but inefficiency. We have seen what efficiency is, right? Efficiency is nothing but satisfying your individual, that is efficiency. On the other hand, if satisfaction exceed the sacrifices, अगर आपको satisfaction मिल रहा है, आपके sacrifices का, आपके contribution का आपको satisfaction मिल रहा है, your willingness will persist, you will be willing to serve, and this condition is nothing but efficiency. So to sum it all up, your willingness depends on effectiveness and efficiency both. So try to remember this. This is not given again in any of the reference books as far as I know, the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. So try to relate this and try to remember this also, because UPSC is very unpredictable. You do not know what UPSC will ask. Maybe in 2017 means they ask about efficiency and effectiveness as given by Chester Bernard, so you never know. Be prepared for it. Okay, so this is what is willingness. Based on the above assumption, Bernard observes that initial existence of an organization depends upon combination of the above mentioned three factors which are suitable to the external environment. So what Bernard says here is, जो initial existence होती है organization की, initially organization को exist करने के लिए you need these three factors of communication, willingness to serve and common purpose. Initially an organization requires this because initially these are suitable to the external environment. If you have a very new organization, अगर आपने नई कोई organization शुरू की है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल लेट्स से सिविल सर्विसेज ऑल्सो और अ शू मेकिंग फैक्ट्री, आपने कोई नई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन शुरू की है, तो उसके जो इनिशियल जो 3 एलिमेंट्स हैं, कम्युनिकेशन, विलिंगनेस टू सर्व एंड कॉमन पर्पस, सिर्फ यही मैटर करते हैं. शुरू के दिनों में आपका बाहर का एनवायरनमेंट का जो है वो सब मैटर नहीं करेगा. सो इनिशियली यू नीड दिस 3 फैक्टर्स एंड दिस 3 फैक्टर्स आर इनिशियली सूटेबल टू द एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट ऑल्सो. बट इट्स सर्वाइवल, अगर आपको उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को सर्वाइव करना है, इट्स सर्वाइवल डिपेंड्स अपॉन द मेंटेनेंस ऑफ एन इक्विलिब्रियम ऑफ द सिस्टम, एंड दिस इक्विलिब्रियम हैज बोथ इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल डायमेंशंस. इंटरनल डायमेंशंस आर 3 एलिमेंट्स व्हिच यू हैव लर्नड अबव: कम्युनिकेशन, विलिंगनेस टू सर्व एंड कॉमन पर्पस. एंड एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स आर नथिंग बट एफिशिएंसी एंड इफेक्टिवनेस. तो अगर आपको इनिशियली अगर आपको ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चालू करनी है, यू जस्ट नीड 3 फैक्टर्स, बट इफ यू हैव टू मेक इट सर्वाइव इन द लॉन्ग रन, यू नीड एन इक्विलिब्रियम बिटवीन इट्स इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल डायमेंशंस. Internal dimensions being the initial 3 factors and external dimension being the efficiency and effectiveness. The satisfaction of employees is the efficiency and effectiveness is able to achieve the common purpose of the organization. So आपको ये internal external factors में equilibrium लाना पड़ेगा. This is different from the contribution satisfaction equilibrium. If you remember, it is only a part. Contribution satisfaction equilibrium is only a part which is nothing but efficiency. और ये जो equilibrium की हम बात कर रहे हैं, ये हम internal और external dimensions के equilibrium की बात कर रहे हैं. So try to remember this. So this is what nothing but formal organizations as given by Chester Bernard. The second is informal organizations. We will see what Bernard says about informal organizations. For a deeper understanding of cooperative systems and processes, it is necessary to understand the relationship between formal and informal organization. तो अगर आपको cooperative system को ज़्यादा deep में understand करना है, आपको formal और informal organization के relationship को भी understand करना पड़ेगा. This is the very basic thing. Bernard maintains that it is a part of human nature and a social process that men develop a network of relationships on systematized interactions. तो ये human nature होता है, हर किसी के इंसान के अंदर ये nature होता है कि हमको दोस्त बनाने हैं, हमको socialize करना है. We have to make friends, we have to socialize. This is a part of human nature. एंड दिस इज़ वाई मैन डेवलप अ नेटवर्क ऑफ रिलेशनशिप. आप किसी भी कंपनी में जाओगे, किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जाओगे, IAS ऑफिसर भी बन जाओगे, तो आप वहाँ पे दोस्त तो बनाओगे ना. दिस इज़ वाई बिकॉज देर इज़ अ बेसिक ह्यूमन नेचर टू सोशलाइज, देर इज़ अ बेसिक ह्यूमन नेचर टू फॉर्म अ नेटवर्क ऑफ रिलेशनशिप. एंड दिस इज वॉट बर्नार्ड सेज, दैट इट इज़ अ पार्ट ऑफ ह्यूमन नेचर एंड अ सोशल प्रोसेस दैट मैन डेवलप अ नेटवर्क ऑफ रिलेशनशिप ऑन सिस्टमेटाइज इंटरेक्शंस. कुछ सिस्टमेटाइज इंटरेक्शंस होते हैं, लाइक हाउ आर यू, आई एम फाइन, डू यू लाइक म्यूजिक, डू यू लाइक मूवीज, डू यू लाइक दिस मूवी, डू यू लाइक दिस नॉवल. So based on this systematized interactions, you develop a network of relationship, you develop a group of friends around you. This is a very basic human nature to socialize, and this gives rise to growth of conventions, customs and institutions. All this result into what is known as informal organization. So what is informal organization? Nothing but whatever informal grouping you are forming inside a formal organization. तो आप organization के अंदर जो दोस्त बनाते हो, जो group बनाते हो, that is nothing but informal organization, because there are no formal rules about this. This you make on your own. That is why it is called informal. It is an organization within an organization, and this gives rise to certain conventions also. कि 1 बजे ही लंच करने जाएंगे and 1 से 2 लंच टाइम में हम कुछ काम नहीं करेंगे. Some conventions you make, right? So some conventions are grown, some customs and institutions, and these are nothing but informal organizations. Bernard describes informal organizations as the aggregate of personal contacts and interactions and the associated groupings of people. तो आपके जो भी पर्सनल कॉन्टैक्ट्स और इंटरेक्शंस होते हैं वो, और जो भी एसोसिएटेड ग्रुपिंग्स होती हैं वो सब कुछ इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होता है. Such organization are indefinite, structureless and are a shapeless mass of varied densities. So these are indefinite in number inside a formal organization. Why so? Because as a person you might be a part of 6 different friend groups. There might be 6 different friend groups of you that you are a part of inside one company itself, and this is true for every other person in that group, right? So there are indefinite number of such informal organizations, and such informal organizations are structureless. There is no structure within your friends group, right? So such informal organizations are structureless, they are indefinite, they are a shapeless mass of varied densities. कोई 5 लोगों का ग्रुप होगा, कोई 50 लोगों का ग्रुप होगा, so varied densities का shapeless mass है. And all of this aggregate of personal contacts and interactions and the associated groupings, all of this is nothing but informal organizations according to Bernard. So remember this, they have tremendous influence on cooperative systems because they interact with formal organization on a continuous basis. This is very simple, right? अगर आपको एज अ ग्रुप कुछ चाहिए तो आप उसको डिमांड करते हो अपने मैनेजर से. सो एज अ इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन यू आर interacting with the formal organization, so there is a tremendous influence of the informal organization on the cooperative systems. Bernard says that every informal organization to be effective must always establish formal organizations within it, and every formal organization gives rise to informal organizations because of network of interpersonal relationships. So this is a very important point that Bernard makes. Please pay close attention to this. Bernard says that let's say you have a group of 5 people outside the organization, outside the company, everything. You just have a group of 5 friends. There is just one informal organization and nothing else. There is nothing else, just one informal organization of 5 friends. So if you want that informal organization to be effective, that informal organization must always establish formal organizations within it, otherwise it will not be effective in the long run. अगर आपको अपने informal organization को effective बनाना है, so you should formalize it in some way or other. That is how every informal organization will be effective in the long run, otherwise it will perish. And every formal organization, this is the second scenario, and every formal organization gives rise to informal organizations because of network of interpersonal relationships. So you do not have to do anything over here. Automatically every formal organization will form informal organization because people will interact, they will form interpersonal relationships. So you do not have any hand in this. Without your cooperation, आपके बिना कुछ किए अपने आप formal organization के अंदर informal organization अपने आप बन जाएंगे, infinite informal organization बन जाएंगे. But on the other hand, every informal organization must establish formal organizations if it has to be effective. So these are two scenarios. Please remember, try to remember this. Informal organization का एक scenario है और एक formal organization का scenario है. In Bernard's words, they are interdependent aspects of the same phenomenon. So they are both interdependent. अगर इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है और आपको उसको इफेक्टिव बनाना है तो फॉर्मलाइज करो, और अगर फॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तो उसमें अपने आप इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बन जाएंगे. सो दीज आर ऑल इंटरडिपेंडेंट एस्पेक्ट्स, दे आर ऑल इंटरडिपेंडेंट एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द सेम फेनोमेनन. देयर कैन नॉट बी वन विदाउट द अदर. इफ वन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन फेल्स द अदर विल नेसेसरली डिसइंटीग्रेट. तो एक के बिना दूसरा नहीं चल सकता. लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल ऑफ इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. लेट्स से देयर इज अ कंपनी ऑफ 100 people. So those 100 people will form some informal organizations within themselves, right? So if those informal organizations break down, if all those people start to fight among each other, सब झगड़े होने लग गए उन 100 लोगों में, 100 लोगों की कंपनियों में, तो क्या होगा? अगर such informal organization is broken down, the formal organization will not sustain, right? Because every employee is fighting with one another now, the formal organization will also disintegrate. So if one organization fails, the other will necessarily disintegrate, and they are interdependent aspects of the same phenomenon. Try to remember this. These are very important words. The informal organizations become necessary to the operation of formal organization because as a means of communication, cohesion, and of protecting the integrity, self-respect, and choice of individuals. So these are the advantages of having an informal organization. So if a question asks you what are the advantages of having an informal organization, these are the advantages. It acts as a means of communication, and this is true, right? Informal organization act as a means of communication. अगर आपको किसी को कुछ बात बतानी है, आप दूसरे बंदे को कुछ बात बताओगे, वो दूसरा बंदा तीसरे बंदे को कुछ बात बताएगा, and this is like the news travels, right? So informal organization is a means of communication, and as we will study in our module 3 administrative behavior, this is not very effective means of communication because information gets distorted. मैं आपको कुछ बताऊंगा, आप कुछ समझोगे, आप तीसरे आदमी को कुछ और बताओगे, वो तीसरा आदमी कुछ और समझेगा, फिर वो चौथे आदमी को कुछ और समझाएगा. So information gets distorted. So this is not very effective means of communication. Nevertheless, it is a means of communication. This is the advantage of having an informal organization. It is a means of communication. It इट इज़ अ मीन्स ऑफ कोहेजन ऑल्सो. वो फेविकॉल का जोड़ टाइप बन जाता है, राइट. यू आर बाउंड टुगेदर विद इन अ ग्रुप. देयर इज कोहेसिविटी विद इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नाउ. एवरी अदर इंडिविजुअल इज बाउंड टुगेदर विद एवरी अदर इंडिविजुअल, सो द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एज अ होल हैज कोहेसिविटी. एंड ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिंग द इंटीग्रिटी, सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट एंड चॉइस ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स. सो इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अगर होती है, आपका कोई ग्रुप है, तो आपकी सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट भी बची रहेगी, आपका इंटीग्रिटी बची रहेगी, राइट. सो दीज आर ऑल द एडवांटेजेस ऑफ हैविंग इनफॉर्मल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. So this is nothing but what Chester Bernard says about formal and informal organizations. So I hope this is clear to you. Moving on to the concept of authority that Chester Bernard gives us. So he says that another important and most crucial element for cooperative effort in a general organization is authority. So authority is the most crucial element ऑफ कोऑपरेटिव एफर्ट. तो अगर आपको कोऑपरेटिव एफर्ट को अच्छा बनाना है तो आपको उसमें कोई ना कोई एक अथॉरिटी होनी चाहिए, कोई एक मैनेजर होना चाहिए या कुछ होना चाहिए. सो देयर शुड बी अथॉरिटी इफ यू हैव टू मेक योर कोऑपरेटिव एफर्ट मीनिंगफुल. दिस इज व्हाट चेस्टर बर्नार्ड सेज. बर्नार्ड डज नॉट अग्री विद द ट्रेडिशनल कंसेप्ट ऑफ अथॉरिटी. तो जो भी पुराने कंसेप्ट ऑफ अथॉरिटी थे, जिन्होंने भी दिया है अथॉरिटी के कंसेप्ट, वो सारे चेस्टर बर्नार्ड ने नेग्लेक्ट करे. एंड ही इंट्रोड्यूसेस एक्सेप्टेंस एज द बेसिस ऑफ हिज थियोरी ऑफ अथॉरिटी. विल सी इन आवर नेक्स्ट पॉइंट व्हाट एक्सेप्टेंस इज, बट ही हैज rejected the traditional concept and he has given acceptance as the basis. So we will see what this acceptance theory is. He defines authority as the character of a communication or order in a formal organization by virtue of which it is accepted by a contributor or member of organization as governing the action he contributes. तो अगर आप किसी को order दे रहे हो as a manager, if you are giving an order to your subordinate and if that order is being accepted by your subordinate, only then you have the authority over that subordinate. अगर आपको अपनी authority exercise करनी है, that subordinate should accept it. This is nothing but the theory of acceptance that Chester Bernard gives us. Whatever order you are giving to your subordinate, if that order or that communication as a manager, अगर आप जो भी order दे रहे हो और जो भी communication दे रहे हो, if that order is accepted by your subordinate, only then you have the authority over that subordinate. Otherwise, you do not have authority over that subordinate. It will become more clear to you in next points. We'll see that for Bernard, authority consists of two aspects. One is subjective aspect and another one is objective aspect. What is the difference between subjective and objective? We have discussed this in our previous session also. Subjective means which changes from subject to subject. इंसान से इंसान के लिए वो change करेगा. This is nothing but subjective. And objective is it will remain same for everyone. For example, very simple example I will give you. Your prelims exam is objective question paper, right? It is objective. आप चार option में से एक option choose करते हो. And what is correct for you is correct for everyone. So this is an objective type paper. And your mains is a subjective type paper. It changes from subject to subject. Your perception of question changes, your way of answer writing changes, and your way of correcting also changes if you are correcting paper. So this is a subjective aspect which changes from subject to subject, and objective is which remains in general same for everyone. So for Bernard, authority also consists of two aspects. One is subjective aspect which changes from personal to personal. This is nothing but the personal aspect, the accepting of communication as authoritative. आप personally अगर उसको accept कर रहे हो तो ऐसा कुछ aspect होता है. And the second one is objective aspect, the character in the communication by virtue of which it is accepted. Let's understand this by an example. Let's take Government of India as an example. So Government of India has some tax rules, some income tax rules or service tax or sales tax or whatever set, GST or whatever tax you want to take. Some taxes are there which you have to pay. So these are the orders of the government which are objective in aspect. These are the characters in the communication by virtue of it is accepted. ठीक है, वो order ही ऐसा है. The character of that communication or the character of that order is such that you accept it. It is objective. आप उसको reject नहीं कर सकते. You will have to pay income tax if you are a citizen of India. You will have to pay GST. You will have to pay indirect taxes and everything. You will have to do this. This is the objective aspect. You cannot deny that. The subjective aspect is, let's say for tomorrow Prime Minister Narendra Modi comes on the television and he tells you to be a part of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and clean your society every day or clean your building grounds every day. Now it is up to you to accept that or not. So this is the subjective aspect of the order given by Government of India or the Prime Minister of India, right? So there are two aspects of every authority. One is subjective aspect which depends from person to person whether he has to accept that authority or not. Another one is objective aspect by the virtue of communication or order itself. It is objective and you have no choice in it. आपके पास कोई choice नहीं होता, आपको टैक्स भरना ही पड़ेगा. So this is the objective aspect. So every authority consists of two aspects. I hope this is clear to you now. Bernard further argues that if a directive communication is accepted by one to whom it is addressed, its authority for him is confirmed or established. It is admitted as the basis of action. What this means is, if you have accepted the order, you have established the authority of the other person. जिसका आपने order accept किया है उसकी authority आपने establish कर दी है आपके ऊपर with regards to that. For example, if you are paying your taxes, you are acknowledging the authority of the government over you in with respect to taxes. So if you are accepting an order, you have established the authority of the other person over you with respect to that order. And disobedience of such a communication is a denial of its authority over him. तो अगर आप वो order को अगर आप disobey करते हो और अगर आप वो communication को नहीं मानते हो तो आपने उसकी authority deny कर दी है. That person does not have any authority over you with respect to that. So Bernard further argues that, as you can see, if a directive communication is nothing but orders, right? So if a directive communication is accepted by one to whom it is addressed, तो अगर आपने उसको accept कर लिया, its authority for him is confirmed or established. आपने उसकी authority establish कर दी है. Disobedience of such a communication is denial of its authority. So I hope you are understanding the acceptance basis of authority, right? It is up to you to accept the authority. So this is nothing but acceptance as the basis of authority. सामने वाले को कोई हक नहीं है अपनी authority आपके ऊपर force करने का. He cannot force his authority over you. It is up to you to accept his authority or not. This is nothing but acceptance theory. I hope this is getting clear to you. Thus, the decision as to whether an order has authority or not lies with the person to whom it is addressed and does not reside in persons of authority. As I have said, जो order दे रहा है उसका बस में नहीं है आपके ऊपर force करने का. It does not reside in that person to decide whether that order has authority or not. It is up to you, to the person whom it is addressed. It is lying with that person to whom it is addressed, the decision as to whether that order has authority or not. This is the acceptance as the basis. I hope this is getting clear to you. He adds that organizations fail because authority fails. तो organizations fail क्यों होती हैं? क्योंकि authority fail होती हैं इसलिए. And what does this mean? What does this mean by authority fails? We'll see there are two meanings. They cannot secure sufficient contribution of personal efforts to be effective or cannot induce them on terms that are efficient. तो अगर आप अपने member से contribution नहीं करवा पा रहे हो तो आपकी authority fail हो गई. If you are not able to secure sufficient contribution, आपकी authority fail हो गई, right? Your authority has failed if you are not able to secure contribution from your members, or if you cannot induce them on terms that are efficient. We have seen this, that why will people cooperate? When they will be satisfied, and well, they will be satisfied when they have some incentive for that, then they will be satisfied and only then they will cooperate. तो अगर आप उनको induce नहीं कर पा रहे हो, inducements अगर आप नहीं दे पा रहे हो उनको और आप उनसे contribution नहीं ले पा रहे हो तो आपकी authority fail हो गई, right? And also because the individuals in sufficient numbers regard the burden involved in accepting necessary orders as changing the balance of advantage against their interest, and they withdraw or withhold the indispensable contributions. तो पहला तो ये हो गया कि आपने contribution नहीं करवा पाए. First thing is that you cannot secure contribution. Second thing is the individuals themselves withhold the contributions. वो खुद से contribute नहीं करते because they think that the balance has tilted not in their favor and not in their advantage. As you can see, they feel that accepting orders will change the balance of advantage against their interest. तो उनके interest में नहीं change हो रहा है ये balance. अगर वो order accept करते हैं तो उनका advantage नहीं है उसमें, उनका satisfaction नहीं मिलेगा उनको. So they themselves withhold the contribution. So this is how authority fails. And when authority fails, organization fail. I hope this is clear to you. And hence Bernard says the necessity of the assent of the individual to establish authority for him is inescapable. Because of these reasons, it is necessary that assent of the individual must be there for the authority. It is inescapable. अगर सामने वाले ने deny कर दिया तो आपको authority नहीं मिलेगी. You do not have authority. You cannot exercise your authority over him. Assent of that individual, उसकी हाँ होना जरूरी है. Assent of that individual is inescapable. उसकी हाँ होना जरूरी है. It is inescapable. I hope acceptance theory of authority is clear to you as given by Bernard. This is very, very simple. Try to remember this, acceptance as the basis of authority. We'll see what else Bernard said about authority. Individuals in the organization accept authority only when following 4 conditions obtained simultaneously. So we have seen in our previous slide, authority क्या होती है? Acceptance होती है. Now we'll see under what conditions I will accept the order. ठीक है, तो पहली चीज तो मुझे accept करना चाहिए तभी वो authority बनेगी. This is what we have seen. अब मैं किन किन conditions में accept करूंगा? So these are the 4 conditions which should be obtained simultaneously. This is very important word. If I have to accept authority, these 4 conditions should be obtained simultaneously. साइमल्टेनियसली, सब साथ में होना चाहिए, ऐसा नहीं कि एक हो गया तो कर लिया, सब साइमल्टेनियसली होता है। फर्स्ट इज इंटेलिजिबिलिटी, इंडिविजुअल कैन एंड डज अंडरस्टैंड द कम्युनिकेशन। अगर आपने जो ऑर्डर मुझे दिया है, अगर मुझे वो समझ में आ रहा है तो मैं उस ऑर्डर को मानूंगा। एंड फॉर दिस कम्युनिकेशन शुड बी इंटेलिजिबल एंड इंटरप्रिटेबल, तो पढ़ने में आना चाहिए, समझ में आना चाहिए और इंटरप्रेट करने आना चाहिए। सो दिस इज ऑल दिस इंटेलिजिबिलिटी, राइट। तो इंटेलिजिबल होने चाहिए और इंटरप्रिटेबल होने चाहिए, ऐसे ऑर्डर्स होने चाहिए। इफ आई एम एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द ऑर्डर, इफ आई एम एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द कम्युनिकेशन, ओनली देन आई विल ओबे योर ऑर्डर। सेकेंड फैक्टर इज कंसिस्टेंसी, कंसिस्टेंसी होनी चाहिए ऑर्डर में। एट द टाइम ऑफ हिज डिसीजन ही बिलीव्स दैट इट इज कंसिस्टेंट विद द पर्पज ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। तो अगर आपका ऑर्डर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के पर्पस से कंसिस्टेंट नहीं है तो मैं उस ऑर्डर को नहीं मानूंगा। फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू आर एन आईएएस ऑफिसर, इफ योर सुपरवाइजर सेज यू टू गो टू द टेरेस एंड जंप फ्रॉम द बिल्डिंग, विल यू जंप? दैट इज एन ऑर्डर, बट विल यू जंप? इट इज नॉट कंसिस्टेंट विद द ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल पर्पस, राइट? सो यू विल नॉट follow that order. So it should be consistent, that order whatever is given, it should be consistent with the purpose of the organization. This is the second factor. First is intelligibility, समझ में आना चाहिए. Second is consistency with the purpose of the organization, consistent होना चाहिए. Third is compatibility. At the time of his decision he believes it to be compatible with his personal interest as a whole. तो मेरे जो personal interest हैं, मेरे जो personal moral values हैं, moral codes and ethics हैं, उनके साथ भी compatible होना चाहिए, तभी मैं वो order मानूंगा. For example, let's take another example. If you are an IAS officer and your supervisor tells you to take a bribe and pass on a file from a client, will you do that? Now it depends. If you are compatible with it, you will do it. If you are not compatible with it, you will not do it. आप resign कर दोगे लेकिन आप bribe नहीं लोगे, आप रिश्वत नहीं लोगे. So compatibility भी एक factor होती है. Only then you will follow that order, right? So intelligibility, consistency and compatibility. Also feasibility. You should be mentally and physically able to do that. अगर आप able ही नहीं हो करने के और आपसे वो ऐसा काम करवाने की बोल रहे हैं तो आप कैसे करोगे? So these are the four factors under which I can obey an order. It should be intelligible, it should be consistent, it should be compatible and it should be feasible enough for me to do it. Thus it is evident that determination of authority lies with the subordinate individual. So as we have already discussed acceptance theory, तो determination of authority as we have seen it lies with the subordinate individual. अगर मैं accept करूँगा तो ही वो authority है, right? So it lies with me. Then the question that arises is how to ensure enduring cooperation of an individual in an organization. ना अब हमने ये देख लिया कि authority तभी है जब accept होगी और under what conditions I can accept the authority. Now question arises is as a manager what should I do to ensure that you are cooperating? मुझे ऐसा क्या करना चाहिए? So first thing that you should do is that there are three conditions. So first thing that you should do is when the orders issued are in accordance with the four conditions discussed above. So as a manager, if I am able to make my orders compatible with these four things, then my orders will be accepted, right? Because these four things must satisfy for it to be accepted. So I hope this is clear to you. As a manager, what should I do? There are three things that I can do. Either I can satisfy these four conditions. तो अगर ये चार conditions satisfy हो गई तो मेरा order accept हो जाएगा, right? I will be able to ensure cooperation then. So first thing is ensuring four conditions discussed above. Second thing is when the orders fall within the zone of indifference. So what is this zone of indifference? We'll see in our next slide. Our very next slide is on zone of indifference, so do not worry about that. So second thing what you can do is your order should fall within the zone of indifference. First thing is चार conditions satisfy कर लो. Second thing is zone of indifference भी satisfy कर लो. अगर इन दोनों में से आपने कुछ भी कर लिया तो हो जाएगा. तीसरा आप काम कर सकते हो. थर्ड थिंग यू कैन डू इज व्हेन द ग्रुप इन्फ्लुएंसेस द इंडिविजुअल. जो आपको जो ग्रुप जिसमें आप काम कर रहे हो अगर वो आपको इन्फ्लुएंस करने में कामयाब हो गया, व्हेन द ग्रुप इन्फ्लुएंसेस द इंडिविजुअल रिजल्टिंग इन द स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ द जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस. सो इफ द ग्रुप इज एबल टू स्टेबिलाइज योर जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस. व्हाट इज जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस विल सी इन आवर वेरी नेक्स्ट स्लाइड itself. Do not worry about this. So these are the three things that a manager can do. Either satisfy the four conditions or make your order fall within the zone of indifference or ensure that the group that the person is working in stabilizes the zone of indifference. So we'll see what the zone of indifference is now. So zone of indifference, if you categorize an order in the order of their acceptability, ठीक है, तो वो acceptable है या नहीं order, अगर आप उसको ऐसे categorize करोगे, there are three categories. First is it is clearly unacceptable. चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए मैं ये order follow नहीं करूँगा, मैं छत से नहीं कूदूंगा. So this is clearly unacceptable order. So this is the one category that the order can fall in. A clearly unacceptable order. Come what may, I will not follow this order. तो ये है clearly unacceptable order. Second is on neutral line. चाहे मैं follow फॉलो कर लूँ चाहे मैं फॉलो ना करूँ. सो दिस इज ऑन अ न्यूट्रल लाइन. ठीक है, तो ऐसा कोई ऑर्डर है जो न्यूट्रल लाइन में है, इधर एक्सेप्टेबल, वो डिपेंड करता है मैं कर भी लूंगा या नहीं भी कर लूंगा. एंड द थर्ड काइंड इज अनक्वेश्चनेबली एक्सेप्टेबल. तो ऐसा कुछ ऑर्डर है जो मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है, फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है, मैं उसको एक्सेप्ट कर ही लूंगा. दिस आर अनक्वेश्चनेबली एक्सेप्टेबल. सो दीज आर द थ्री कैटेगरीज दैट एन ऑर्डर कैन फॉल इन, राइट? वेरी ऑब्वियस. Orders which fall under the last group of unquestionably acceptable come under the zone of indifference. Now try to understand this, don't try to memorize this. What is the zone of indifference? It is this zone in which it does not matter to you what the order is. आपको फर्क नहीं पड़ता, you are indifferent with it. This is the zone of indifference. आपको फर्क नहीं पड़ता वो क्या ऑर्डर है, because it falls within the zone of indifference. ठीक है, because such orders are unquestionably acceptable. So such orders fall within the zone of indifference. जो unquestionably acceptable orders होते हैं ना, those are nothing but zone of indifference. I hope this is clear to you. फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाले orders, ठीक है, मैं मान लूंगा. So as long as the orders fall within this zone, they will be accepted by the individuals unmindful of the nature of authority. तो nature of authority कुछ भी होने दो, फर्क नहीं पड़ता है as long as they are falling within the zone of indifference. The zone of indifference will vary depending upon the inducements offered and the burdens and sacrifices made by the individuals in the organizations. तो ये zone of indifference ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि stable रहता है, it will vary. Zone of indifference will vary according to time, according to the place. It will vary according to the inducements offered to you. It might happen that something which is within the zone of indifference today might not be within the zone of indifference tomorrow, or something which is outside the zone of indifference today might be within the zone of indifference tomorrow. For example, let's say you are an IAS officer, again the same example, your supervisor asks you to take a bribe from a client and pass on the file to him. So let's say you have just joined the service, you have just joined the civil services, आप में बहुत जोश है, IAS officer हो, मैं रिश्वत नहीं लूंगा, I will not take the bribe and what not. So you have this moral code of ethics and everything. So when a supervisor is giving you an order of taking a bribe and passing on the file to him, will you do it? Obviously not, because it is outside the zone of indifference. It might even be clearly unacceptable. Neutral line ना भी हो शायद, वो शायद आपके लिए clearly unacceptable वाले टाइप में चला जाए. ठीक है, so maybe you won't do it, maybe you would do it, maybe you won't do it. ठीक है, तो कुछ भी हो सकता है within the zone of indifference. This is your zone of indifference today. Now let's say 20 years fast forward, you have now settled in your age, you have now settled in your career, you have achieved everything that you have to achieve, and now your supervisor asks you to take the bribe and pass on the file to him. Would you do it? It might happen that you would do it, because अब आपको फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, मैंने बहुत देख लिया है, मैंने पूरी दुनिया देख ली है, अब मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, ठीक है दे दो, रिश्वत देनी है दे दो, अब फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, सुपरवाइजर बोल रहा है मान लो उसकी बात. ठीक है, सो इट माइट हैपन दैट 20 years down the line the same thing might fall within the zone of indifference, and today it might not fall within the zone of indifference. So it all depends. Zone of indifference will vary depending upon the inducements offered, depending upon the time, depending upon the place that you are in. So zone of indifference आपको फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला जो zone है वो constant नहीं रहता, it varies. If the inducements are not adequate, limited acceptance of orders will happen. तो अगर आप inducements बराबर नहीं दोगे तो orders भी limited होंगे. So zone of indifference varies according to inducements also, right? So inducement अगर आप दोगे तो आपका zone of indifference उतना ही अच्छा होगा. अगर आप उस काम को करने के लिए पैसे दोगे तो आप वो काम करोगे, right? So zone of indifference will vary according to the inducements also. अगर inducements बराबर नहीं होंगे तो मुझे फर्क पड़ेगा, फिर वो मेरे नहीं फर्क पड़ने वाले जोन में नहीं आएगा, राइट? सो inducements are not adequate, so zone of indifference will shrink and acceptance of orders will be limited. So I hope this zone of indifference is getting clear to you. The executives in the organization should be conscious of the zone and issue only those orders which fall within it. तो as an executive, as an manager, आपका ये काम होता है to ensure that your orders are falling within the zone of indifference of that employee. आप उसको कुछ ऐसा काम करने मत बोलो जो उसके zone of indifference में नहीं आता, नहीं तो वो एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेगा, ऑब्वियस सी बात है. इफ द एग्जीक्यूटिव इज नॉट कॉन्शियस ऑफ दिस, अगर आप इस चीज़ से कॉन्शियस नहीं हो, बर्नार्ड सेज दैट द एग्जीक्यूटिव आइदर डज नॉट नो हाउ टू यूज हिज अथॉरिटी और आइदर ही इज अब्यूजिंग द अथॉरिटी. तो फर्स्ट थिंग दैट यू शुड बी कॉन्शियस ऑफ जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस ऑफ योर members of the organization, and if you are not conscious of this, two things might happen. Either you do not know how to use your authority or you are abusing your authority. अगर आपको ये पता है कि उसका जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस क्या है और फिर भी आप उसको वो ऑर्डर दे रहे हो जो उसके जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस में लाई नहीं करता, you are abusing your authority. So try to understand these things. This is very simple concept of zone of indifference. फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला जोन होता है. So I hope that is clear to you. So we'll move on to our last topic of today, that is nothing but fiction of superior authority. So first of all, what do you understand by fiction? Fiction is something which is imaginary, which is not real. For example, most of the movies that you see these days, most of the novels that you read, most of these things are fiction. These are imaginary stories. For let's say for example, stories of Sherlock Holmes. There is no real person named Sherlock Holmes, right? It is a fiction created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So fiction are something which is imaginary. So what Chester Bernard tries to say in this topic is that there is a fiction of superior authority among the members of the organization and among the authority also there is a fiction that we are superior. ठीक है, तो ये एक imaginary चीज़ है जो हम सब लोग कैरी करते हैं कि हमारे मैनेजर जो हैं, हमारे superiors जो हैं वो हमसे superior है. This is a fiction that Chester Bernard explains. We'll see in this slide. Bernard emphasizes that the executive or manager should be aware of the myth and the reality about the authority. तो जो भी executive है, manager है, उसको पता होना चाहिए कि authority की क्या realities हैं और क्या myth हैं. There should be no fiction. He should be aware of the myth and the realities of the authority. This is the work of the executive. This is what Bernard says. Bernard called authority as fictional. He says that the supervisor presumes that subordinate accepts orders because they want to avoid making issue of such orders and avoid personal subservience or loss of personal status with their colleagues. So what supervisor does is he assumes certain things, and this is why he says that authority is fictional. What supervisor assumes is that subordinates accept order because of two conditions. The first one is because they want to avoid making issue of such orders. वो scene create नहीं करना चाहते, ठीक है. They don't want to create the scene by not accepting the orders, so they want to avoid making the issue of such orders. That is why they accept orders. This is what supervisor assumes. This is why that subordinate is accepting the order. This is what supervisor assumes, that they do not want to create scene. ठीक है, वो scene create नहीं करना चाहते. They do not want to create an issue by not accepting the order. ठीक है, एक बड़ा issue बन जाएगा. The second thing that supervisor assumes is they accept order because they want to avoid personal subservience or loss of personal status with their colleagues. So it's like अपने दोस्तों के सामने अपनी नाक नहीं कटवाना चाहते हैं वो लोग. Like what will their friends and what will their colleagues say that this guy is not even obeying the orders given by supervisors, right? So they do not want to lose their personal status in front of their colleagues and all that. So these are the two things that supervisor assumes. This is why subordinate is accepting the order, that he does not want to create issue and create scene by not accepting, and he does not want to lose his personal status in front of his colleagues. So these are the things that supervisor assumes, but this is not true. This is not true. Why? Because contributors or the members of the organization, the contributors accept the orders if it is taken to see that only acceptable communications are issued. तो अगर आप acceptable कम्युनिकेशन इशू करोगे, अगर आप एक्सेप्टेबल ऑर्डर्स इशू करोगे, तो ऑब्वियसली आपके ऑर्डर्स एक्सेप्ट किए जाएंगे, राइट? एंड दिस इज द रीजन वाई द ऑर्डर्स आर बीइंग एक्सेप्टेड बाय द सबऑर्डिनेट्स, बिकॉज दे आर एक्सेप्टेबल इन नेचर एंड नॉट बिकॉज दे डू नॉट वांट टू क्रिएट सीन और दे डू नॉट वांट टू लूज देयर रिस्पेक्ट इन फ्रंट ऑफ देयर फ्रेंड्स. ये सब रीजन नहीं होते. जस्ट बिकॉज योर ऑर्डर्स आर एक्सेप्टेबल, दे आर एक्सेप्टिंग इट. दिस इज द रियल रीजन. मोस्ट ऑफ देम फॉल विद इन द जोन ऑफ पर्सनल इंडिफरेंस. दिस इज द सेकंड रीजन दैट दे एक्सेप्ट, दैट द ऑर्डर्स आर फॉलोइंग विद इन देयर जोन ऑफ इंडिफरेंस. उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, ऐसे वाले जोन में वो ऑर्डर्स फॉलो हो रहे हैं, इसके लिए वो एक्सेप्ट करते हैं. एंड द कम्युनल सेंस इन्फ्लुएंसेस द मोटिव्स ऑफ द कंट्रीब्यूटर्स. तो जो भी कम्युनल सेंस होता है, जो भी कम्युनिटी में रहते हैं, राइट, तो कम्युनिटी ऑल्सो इन्फ्लुएंसेस एवरीवन, राइट? सो तो कम्युनल सेंस ऑल्सो इन्फ्लुएंसेस एंड दैट इज वाई दे एक्सेप्ट द ऑर्डर एंड नॉट बिकॉज दे डू नॉट वांट टू क्रिएट सीन एंड अपनी नाक नहीं कटवाना चाहते. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. दे एक्सेप्ट ऑर्डर्स बिकॉज ऑफ दीज कंडीशंस. सो दिस आर द थिंग्स दैट सुपरवाइजर अज्यूम्स एंड दीज आर नॉट ट्रू एंड दिस इज वाई अथॉरिटी इज फिक्शनल. आप जो ये खुद मान के चलते हो कि मैं बड़ा हूँ, इसके लिए मेरी बात मानी जा रही है, this is a fiction that you are harboring inside yourself. You should not harbor such fiction inside yourself. Your orders are not being accepted because you are big or because you are superior. Your orders are being accepted because they are acceptable. So avoid all the fiction, and executives should be aware of the myth and the reality. I hope this is getting clear to you, the fiction of superior authority. This is the one thing that authorities have the fiction about. They assume certain things about themselves. They consider themselves too big in front of their subordinates, but this is not true. This is just a fiction. I hope this is clear to you. We'll see that the fiction of superior authority appears to be necessary for two important reasons. He says that this fiction is there and managers should be aware of this myth and realities, but in a way this fiction of superior authority is necessary. हर कंपनी में ये fiction होना जरूरी है. मैनेजर को लगना चाहिए कि वो बड़ा है और सबऑर्डिनेट्स को लगना चाहिए कि वो छोटे हैं, ठीक है? एक not in an entire sense, try to understand what I'm saying here, not in an entire sense, but there is necessary that this fiction to some extent exist in an organization. So fiction of superior authority should be there. There are two important reasons that Chester Bernard gives us for this. First is fiction of authority enables the individual to delegate upward or to the organization responsibility for what is an organization decision. Most persons obey authority because they dislike the personal responsibility when they are not in a position to accept it. So what he's trying to say here is that आपके अंदर वो फिक्शन है कि मेरा मैनेजर मुझसे बड़ा है और मैं मैनेजर से छोटा हूँ, दिस इनेबल्स यू टू लेट द मैनेजर टेक डिसीजंस विच आर ऑफ हिज कैलिबर एंड नॉट ऑफ योर कैलिबर. इमेजिन व्हाट विल हैपन इफ एवरीवन इन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्टार्ट सेइंग दैट आई वांट टू टेक माय ओन डिसीजन, मैं अपने डिसीजन खुद लूंगा. व्हाट विल हैपन देन? देयर विल बी chaos, right? So fiction of authority is necessary for this reason, because you have a fiction that manager is superior to you. एक extent तक ये fiction होना जरूरी है, because you have a fiction, you are letting your managers take decisions which are organization decision. As you can see, it enables the individuals to delegate upward the responsibility for what is an organization decision. ठीक है, तो जो organization decision होते हैं उसकी responsibility आप नहीं ले सकते ना. अगर आप ये बोलने लग गए कि organization का decision भी मैं ही लूंगा, पूरी organization में chaos हो जाएगा अगर हर कोई organization का decision लेगा तो. So it allows you to delegate upwards the responsibility for what is an organization decision. So this is why that fiction is necessary to some extent. The second thing he says is most persons obey authority because they dislike the personal responsibility. This is a basic human nature, right? Everybody tries to avoid responsibility. जितनी कम responsibility दोगे उतना अच्छा है. तो this is why this fiction is necessary, because it allows proper people to have the responsibility. हर किसी को responsibility नहीं देते, because not everyone likes responsibility. अगर आप जिस बंदे को डिसीजन लेना आता ही नहीं है, उसको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी चाहिए ही नहीं, आप उसको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दे दोगे और डिसीजन लेने बोलोगे तो वो डिसीजन उतना अच्छा नहीं होगा. दिस इज वाई दिस फिक्शन इज नेसेसरी इन अ कंपनी, इन एनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. दिस फिक्शन इज नेसेसरी so that not everyone takes the decision, but who is capable of taking the decisions, that person takes the decision. This is the first reason that the fiction of superior authority is important in any organization. Not to a full extent, but to a certain extent it is necessary. The second reason is the fiction drives home the point that what is at stake is the good of the organization. Disobeying authority for arbitrary reasons and twisting organizational requirements for personal advantage must be construed as deliberate attacks on the organization itself. Let's take an example of an organization or an institution in which there is no fiction of authority. किसी को कोई फिक्शन नहीं है, कोई इमेजिनरी चीज नहीं है, एंड एवरीवन इज टेकिंग देयर ओन डिसीजंस. व्हाट विल हैपन इज देयर विल बी टू मच ऑफ फ्रीडम टू रिजेक्ट द ऑर्डर्स, टू रिजेक्ट द डिसीजंस मेड बाय द मैनेजर्स, मेड बाय द सुपीरियर ऑथोरिटीज, बिकॉज देयर इज नो फिक्शन नाउ, राइट? नोबडी थिंक्स दैट नो वन इज सुपीरियर टू देम. सो what is happening is you have too much of freedom to reject the authority, और ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए, because sometimes what is the good of the organization comes from the management, right? So it drives home the point that what is at stake is the good of the organization. Disobeying authority for arbitrary reasons, आप अपने arbitrary reasons के लिए फिर authority को disobey करने लग जाओगे if there is no fiction in you. अगर आपको ज़रा सा भी ये नहीं लगेगा कि आपका मैनेजर आपसे बड़ा है ओहदे में या पोजीशन में, अगर आपको ज़रा सा भी ये नहीं लगेगा तो आप उसको disobey करने लग जाओगे. And this is bad. You should not always disobey your authorities, right? Only when it is very very emergency or very very such situation that you cannot actually obey your manager, only then you should disobey. Otherwise आप हमेशा उसको disobey करने लग जाओगे. This is not good, right? So this is why fiction of authority is necessary, because disobeying the authority is bad for arbitrary reasons, and these are construed as deliberate attacks on the organization. तो आप ये actually organization पे attack कर रहे हो. अगर आप अपनी superiors को disobey कर रहे हो, you are actually attacking your organization itself. According to Bernard, to fail in an obligation intentionally is an act of hostility. No organization will permit it and it will respond with punitive action. तो अगर आपके पास कोई ऑब्लिगेशन है, यू आर ऑब्लाइज टू डू समथिंग, अगर आपको कुछ काम दिया हुआ है आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, अगर आप उस ऑब्लिगेशन में इंटेंशनली फेल हो रहे हो, जानबूझ के आप डिसोबे कर रहे हो ऑर्डर्स को, जानबूझ के आप फेल हो रहे हो अपने काम करने में, तो अगर आप इंटेंशनली अपने ऑब्लिगेशन में फेल हो रहे हो, दिस इज एन एक्ट ऑफ हॉस्टिलिटी. इट विल बी एन एक्ट ऑफ डेलिबरेट अटैक ऑन दी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इटसेल्फ. तो यू आर कंडक्टिंग एन एक्ट ऑफ हॉस्टिलिटी अगर आप जानबूझ के अपनी ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं कर रहे हो तो. नो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन विल परमिट इट, कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इसको परमिट नहीं करेगी, एंड दे will respond with punitive action, and this is why fiction of superior authority is necessary. I hope this is clear to you. So on this note we are done with today's session. We'll meet tomorrow again and we'll learn about all the remaining topics that are left of Chester Bernard. So if you like the content that I have shared today, please like the video. Also comment on the video whatever your heartfelt reviews are. Also if you did not like anything, comment that also. Also share the video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Hope to see you soon in my next session. Peace out.